Good day, and welcome to the First Peoples Cultural Council's information session for the Arts Vitality Grants. Robert Thompson, Hinu Di Kion. My name is Robert Thompson, and I'm a program coordinator with the FPCC, and I've been with the arts team since 2022. I'm a member of the Haida Nation. My Haida family is from Outlagay or Old Masset. I also have Ukrainian, Scottish, and English ancestry. I'm recording from the unceded traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. Hawa, thank you for spending some time to watch this presentation. First Peoples Cultural Council is grateful to have our offices located in the beautiful, traditional, unceded territory of the Husainich Nation people in the village of Hujothlet. We're grateful for speakers, artists, and knowledge holders who hold on to their languages, arts, and heritage. We celebrate you. These are the members of our arts team. In addition to myself, you may come into contact with the other team members when you reach out to us. In addition to the arts team, I want to acknowledge the FPCC coaching team, as they are a huge support to us. The mandate of FPCC is to assist BC First Nations in their efforts to revitalize their languages, arts, cultures, and heritage. The arts program provides financial support to BC First Nations creatives with priority given to projects intended for the revitalization of the arts, languages, cultures, and heritage of BC First Nations. The FPCC Arts Program contains 4 program areas. The Individual Artist Program, which focuses on projects and creative development. Scholarships for arts education are also available under the Individual Artist Program. The Arts Strengthening Program, which includes one-on-one arts mentorships and group workshops to support the continuation of BC First Nations cultural arts practices. The Arts Infrastructure Program, which involves art space construction or renovations and capacity building for BC First Nations arts and cultural organizations and communities. And the Music Program, which is focused on music creation and music industry professional internships, mentorships, and training. Each program area provides support for artists and arts organizations to positively impact creative sovereignty in their respective activities, knowledge transfer, training, and professional development. The Arts Vitality Grant is a one-time grant and is part of a larger research study to document BC First Nations arts vitality across the province of BC, and to understand community needs and challenges for sustainable long-term support to preserve and revitalize BC First Nations arts knowledge and practices. The anticipated release date of the study is March 2027. FPCC has general funding guidelines that apply to all programs. They're available on the funding process page of our website. I strongly recommend to anyone applying to first read the general funding guidelines. There's a lot of helpful information to be found here. The general funding guidelines cover topics such as funding criteria, including eligibility, misrepresentation, ineligible expenses, grant liability, insurance and certification, and criminal record checks. You also find information of FPCC grant applications, including grant portal information, general application guidelines, and reporting requirements, as well as the proposal review process, notification of awards, and payment of awards. In addition, please also review the Arts Vitality Grant Guidelines. This is where you'll find grant-specific details. These are available on the Arts Vitality Grant page on the website. These are some key dates and details for our 2025-2026 arts funding intake. The arts program accepts applications from BC First Nations individuals, bands, tribal councils, and BC First Nations-led organizations. Individuals applying must be BC First Nations, over 19 years of age, and have lived in BC for at least 1 year. Organizations applying must be led by BC First Nations individuals, or at least 75% of directors identify as BC First Nations. Applications are submitted through the FPCC grant portal. You'll need an account to apply, and here you'll see the website address. The deadline for applications is Wednesday, May 28th at 4:30 p.m. We really recommend that you submit your application before the deadline date, as early as you're able, to avoid heavy congestion on the portal, which can interrupt portal functions. Please be advised that a primary goal of this program is to support FPCC-led research on BC First Nations arts vitality, and consent to project outcomes being used for research purposes is a condition of funding. Successful projects will be selected, in part, to curate a representative sample of the diversity of BC First Nations cultures. The project you're applying for can happen between May 28, 2025 and February 1, 2026. FPCC tries to ensure grants are accessible. However, due to lack of long-term funding, there's no guaranteed funding for our programs. Here's what to expect if you apply. Notification of receipt will be sent by email to the primary contact provided in the application. Applications are first reviewed for eligibility, completeness, and clarity of purpose. Then, an impartial adjudication committee of experts, our peer review committee, or PRC, will meet to review proposals and, based on program criteria, will make funding recommendations. These recommendations will inform the funding decisions by FPCC. If approved, payments will be made in 2 installments: 80% of funding upon approval and receipt of signed funding agreement, and 20% of funding upon completion of the project and the approval of final report with budget. If you receive funding for your project, you will be required to complete a final report 1 month after the project end date and not later than February 28, 2026. Please note, you're welcome to complete the final report earlier than the deadline. The final installment will be released upon approval of the final report. Please report on the full amount of the grant in your final report. Next, we'll move to an overview of the Arts Vitality Grant, including what the grant is, some project examples, who's eligible to apply, eligible expenses, the funding term, and what you'll need to apply and how to apply. The FPCC Arts Vitality Grant is a one-time opportunity to receive grant funding for creative projects that contribute to arts-based research on the status and strength of BC First Nations storytelling and arts knowledge and practices. This grant program is one part of a larger research study led by FPCC to understand the current and future needs and challenges for sustainable, long-term support for BC First Nations storytelling and arts preservation, maintenance, and revitalization. The Arts Vitality Grant is up to $10,000. All creative expressions are accepted. This is a one-time grant. Projects will respond to one or more of the guiding questions. The Arts Vitality Grant is part of a larger research study led by FPCC. Projects in this funding stream will engage in all creative expressions, including, but not limited to, carving, song composition, mural, paintings, and other forms of storytelling that respond to one or more of the following guiding questions. How has community storytelling and arts knowledge persisted and shifted across generations? How have community storytelling and arts practices sustained relationships to the land? How do you envision community storytelling and arts knowledge practices thriving in the future? Some examples of eligible projects in this priority area include a community or band-run school art making series exploring climate-impacted natural materials and substitutes through drawing and collage, a community mural based on intergenerational stories of current reality of original Stewart's arts vitality, a series of community songwriting circles with songwriters, youth, and language holders that could lead to a community performance or recording, a land-based performance, carving, song, dance piece depicting the art-making relationships between humans and the natural world, an experimental short film that imagines how future generations will share arts and storytellers' knowledge with the next generation, workshops led by a knowledge keeper to learn about and harvest traditional materials to contribute to community-built weaving, carving, regalia, or other ceremonial treasures. Some applicants will be invited to showcase their projects, art spaces, and practices during a site visit by the FPCC Arts Vitality Research Team. Site visits will be scheduled during the period of August 1st, 2025 and February 1st, 2026. Who can apply for an Arts Vitality Grant? Eligible applicants in this priority area include BC First Nations individuals 19 years of age or older and currently residing in BC, BC First Nations bands or tribal councils, not-for-profit societies registered in BC in good standing and governed by BC First Nations individuals where at least 75 of the directors identify as BC First Nations, BC First Nations-led museums and cultural spaces where at least 75 of the directors identify as BC First Nations, urban and off-reserve BC First Nations-led organizations where at least 75 of the directors identify as BC First Nations, BC First Nations schools or adult education centers operating in BC on First Nations land, and please note that applications from BC First Nations schools that serve one community must be submitted through the respective nation band or band office. In addition, given the research goals of this program and the need to gather information about the diverse BC First Nations cultures and traditions, only one program per band office, tribal council, or society or organization will be eligible for funding. If more than one application from the same band office, tribal council, or society or organization is submitted, the peer review committee will decide which proposal might receive funding. So it's strongly advised that applicants collaborate. Applicants with an active FPCC arts grant from the 24-25 grant intake and are in good standing can apply. Applicants with overdue reports across all FPCC programs are ineligible. These are some examples of eligible expenses. Eligible expenses must be essential to the project and may include salaries and wages, elder or knowledge holder consultation fees, fees and honoraria for collaboration with other artists, mentors, and or elders, equipment rentals and purchases. These costs can be up to 20% of the requested budget. Childcare expenses or activities directly related to the project, materials and supplies, specialized tools up to 20% of the funding requested, travel, accommodation, and transportation costs that are reasonable and necessary for the project, space rentals, administrative costs up to 15% of the funding requested, and research and training expenses. Other expenses not listed here may be eligible, and applicants are encouraged to contact FPCC if you have any expenses that may fall into another category. Lastly, for a full list of ineligible expenses, the FPCC general funding guidelines are available on the funding process page of our website. Also, the Arts Vitality Grant Guidelines is where you'll find program-specific details. These are available on the Arts Vitality Grants page of our website. I'll go over some examples of ineligible expenses here. Expenses not directly related to the project. Expenses that take place before the application deadline, so any expenses before May 28, 2025 are not eligible. Business development costs, for example, business startup costs, point of sale systems, websites, building a brand, business logo design, or the production of items intended to sell. Capital purchases such as vehicles or costs associated with building or land improvement. If you're not sure if an expense is eligible, feel free to contact arts program staff at avg@fpcc.ca. And note that this email is monitored by multiple team members on the arts staff. This slide covers some important dates and deadlines. The deadline to apply to the Arts Vitality Grant is May 28, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Applicants are notified of the funding decision approximately 12 weeks after the application deadline. Projects can take place between May 28, 2025 and February 1st, 2026. Projects must be completed by February 1st, 2026. Grant payments are linked to reporting requirements. The first grant installment is paid once the funding agreement has been signed, and the second and final installment is paid once the final report has been submitted and is approved. A final report is due 1 month after the project is completed, no later than February 28, 2026. Please note, you're welcome to complete the final report earlier than the February 28th deadline, even if your project is not yet complete. The final installment will be released upon the approval of the final report. Please report on the full amount of the grant in your final report. What you'll need to apply. Please submit completed applications that include the following: a project description and timeline. A worksheet for the project work plan is included in the application. You'll be prompted to list specific dates for project work and to describe activities associated with each phase of your project, including what the outcome will be and the key people involved. Resumes or bios for all key participants. A project team worksheet is included in the application. You'll be prompted to enter details of your project team and outline each person's role on the project. A balanced project budget. A worksheet for the project budget is also included in the application. Fill in the worksheet with the descriptions of your anticipated expenses and, if applicable, funding you will receive from other sources. Please include as much detail as possible. For example, listing and describing the items and amounts that make up larger sums. Samples of work from both the applicant, artist, and mentor. We ask that you please be selected with samples of work include a maximum of 5 images, 5 minutes of select video or audio recordings, or up to 3 pages of writing. Please also include a numbered list that clearly identifies and describes the samples. Letters of support are also essential to include with your application. All letters of support must be current, dated, signed, and specific to your project. Signatures may be typed, handwritten, or scanned. Allow yourself a minimum of 3 weeks to gather all necessary information for a complete application. Give yourself time to request letters of support, connect with other key participants, and build a budget and put together a project plan. If applying as an organization, Please also include the most recent annual financial statements. This is just an overview of what you'll need to apply. Please refer to the program guidelines for the full list. Next, I want to provide some grant writing tips to remember when starting your application. The first one is to start early. The sooner you start, the more time you will have to ensure you put your best application forward. In addition, starting early leaves time to set up a meeting with FPCC staff to ask questions. As the closer we get to the deadline, the less available we become for setting up meetings. Read the application form, general and funding guidelines carefully. Grant guidelines can change yearly, so it's important to stay on top of all required criteria when putting your application together. Write briefly and clearly and try not to go over any of the word limits. Peer review committees often have upwards of 30 applications to read, so only include necessary information in your application. Include a detailed budget and ensure your budgets tell the same story as your proposal. It's important that the narrative, work plan, and budget of your proposal align. Use spell check. Proofreading is very important. You can also have someone else review your application for you. This can benefit you as sometimes a second set of eyes can pick up on something you may have missed. A simple, achievable plan makes for a strong application. More grant writing tips. Provide as much detail as you can in your application. This doesn't mean you need to have many paragraphs of writing. It means a brief but thorough description of your idea. For example, where possible, name the people you'll be collaborating with or paying to be part of your team, even if it's noted that this is to be confirmed or pending funding. The peer review committee knows that it's not always possible to confirm participation until you have funding in place, but let us know who you've talked with about the project. This demonstrates that you've thought about the plan, are prepared, and have an idea who you'll be working with. The budget worksheet contains description boxes. Use these to list items and amounts that make up large sum. Demonstrate how you arrived at the number you're entering. For example, if this is a fee you're paying a mentor or videographer, list how much per hour, for how many hours the fee is for. And for you too, remember to pay yourself and demonstrate the rate of pay and for how much time. The peer review committee really appreciates this kind of detail. And remember, the Arts Vitality Grant is a one-time grant. In the future, you'll have to look at other programs for your project or similar projects. The FPCC Arts Program has a few resources available on our website. Our Grant Writing Handbook and our Arts Portfolio Handbook are available to assist you in project planning, writing your grant, and sharing your art. You'll find these handbooks on the Arts Vitality Grant Program page of our website under Tools and Resources. Please note, we're in the process of updating these handbooks. So though they're a little dated, they still contain helpful information. There's also a resource available if you're interested in starting a society so you can apply as an organization. There's a link in the Arts Vitality Guidelines under Program Eligibility Criteria. Next, I want to provide some information when planning your application. We really recommend starting as early as possible. Significant reading and writing are required throughout the application process, along with seeking support letters. It's recommended to allow yourself up to a month to work through all the portions of the application. In addition, applications are completed on the FPCC grant portal, which is technology-based and functions best when used on a laptop or desktop computer. For applicants that require assistance with technology, we recommend having a friend, family member, or someone that you trust assist them with completing and submitting the application. Please reach out to Arts Program staff if you have any questions about the application process, would like to discuss project planning, and if you need support in completing your application. The deadline for one-on-one support is May 13th, 2025. Should your application be successful, you'll be required to submit a final report near the end of your project. The final report is due 1 month following your project end date and no later than February 28th, 2026. That being said, you're welcome to submit your final report early, even if your project is not yet complete. We just ask that you report on the full amount of the grant in your final report budget and what you plan to spend the rest of the funding on. Payments are made in 2 installments. 80% of funding upon approval and receipt of a signed funding agreement, and 20% of funding upon completion of the project and the approval of a final report with budget. The final installment will be released upon approval of the final report. Please note, applicants are not eligible to apply if they have an overdue final report. If they have an active grant and not yet submitted a final report and is not overdue, they are still eligible. Final report will include the following sections to complete: a description of project activities and outcomes, a financial summary of the full project budget including an updated budget worksheet, a place to upload support documentation including photos, videos, audio, and other attachments related to the project, any relevant feedback you'd like to provide to the FPCC. Please note, final reports are reviewed and approved on a first-come, first-served basis. We encourage you to review the final report in the grant portal at the start of your project. It's available on the portal dashboard as soon as the grant is active. This is a great way to be prepared at the beginning of an arts project of what you'll be reporting on. If you have any questions about completing your final report, FPCC staff are here to help. Please email us at avg@fpcc.ca. I hope this gives you a better understanding of what the Arts Vitality Grant supports and how to move forward with your application. If you'd like to apply, applications are being accepted on FPCC's grant portal at www.fpcc.ca/login. You'll need an account on the portal. If you don't have one already, please go to the link to create an account. It's recommended that you read through the general funding guidelines, program guidelines, and application form first. The guidelines are found on FPCC's website. Feel welcome to send us an email with questions or to arrange a time to discuss your project. You can contact me at the email included here, avg@fpcc.ca. Please note that this email is monitored by multiple team members, so you may hear back from another arts team member. I recommend reaching out as soon as possible as we start taking a wait list 2 weeks before the deadline due to the amount of requests we receive. If you don't have access to the internet or when accessibility is a concern, please contact me and we'll create a plan to support your application. Please note that the FPCC grant portal allows you to work on and save your draft application. We recommend you give yourself plenty of time to write your application prior to the deadline. Applications are being accepted until May 28th, 2025. I recommend getting started on your application early and reaching out to us prior to May 13th, 2025, as that will be the last date to schedule one-on-one coaching calls. Thank you for taking the time to watch this information session on the Arts Vitality Grant. Please feel welcome to reach out to me at avg@fpcc.ca if you have any questions.